As we look back at the top scoring fighter aces of all time, the entire list is almost exclusively German pilots. The number of Luftwaffe aces with staggering victory counts is indeed impressive, and their feats in air combat are remarkable. But there is one pilot in particular who had no problem at all with taking on the top German aces. In this video, we will actually look at an ace killer who flew for the Allies and how he would actually be victorious over 3 of the Luftwaffe's leading pilots in a single year. In World War II, there were tons of rations and food that were used when on the front lines. Today, instead of rations, I like to use the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. In case you haven't heard me talk about them yet, HelloFresh gets you mouth-watering seasonal recipes and fresh pre-measured ingredients delivered right to your door. Using their great meal kits, HelloFresh makes cooking at home fun, easy, and affordable. They have over 50 menu options each week, so you always have plenty of delicious recipes to choose from. In addition, each HelloFresh recipe goes through rigorous testing done by professional chefs. One of my personal favorite recipes is their pineapple salsa pork tacos. These were great and took just 30 minutes to make, and cleanup was super easy. So, if this sounds like something for you, use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use code POG-TJ3May16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes, plus free shipping. Once you click, my description will live update to count up the purchases. Thanks again to HelloFresh, and without further ado, enjoy. James Francis Edwards was a native of Canada and grew up in Saskatchewan. After graduating from college in 1940, he volunteered to join the Royal Canadian Air Force. After completing training and learning to fly in the P-40 Kitty Hawk, he would be sent across the Atlantic and the Mediterranean to the North African Theater, where he was posted to the 94th Squadron of the RAF. This theater of war would be a grueling one, fought for the valuable land and oil that was found in the desert. The German forces desperately needed to access the oil reserves to fuel their war machine, and this was one of the prime places to obtain it. In addition, the Suez Canal provided a key route for transportation of raw materials and men from the Atlantic to Indian Oceans. This was key for the modern mechanization of armies during this time. Because of the vast, barren landscapes that this theater was fought on, air support also played a key role here. Targets on the ground were often wide open for attack from the air, with no place to hide. In addition, against the sands of the desert, they were always easy to spot. Thus, the Luftwaffe and RAF commanders both recognized their potential contribution to this battle, and so began an epic clash in the skies above. James Edwards, who would at this time become known as Eddie, arrived in early 1942, just in time for the heat of the battle. Now, one important note here is that Edwards was flying the P-40 Kitty Hawk, which was far from the most advanced fighter on the front lines. At this time, German pilots were nearly all outfitted with the Messerschmitt Bf 109 F or G models. These were improved versions of what was already a deadly fighter. It was one of the fastest aircraft in the skies at this time, and with its cannons it could shoot down any enemy targets with ease. The Kitty Hawk, on the other hand, was already a few years old. It lacked a 2-speed supercharger, did not perform very well at high altitudes, and was not a highly maneuverable fighter. The P-40 did famously perform very well in theaters like China, where it was up against weaker and poorly armored aircraft. But this was not China, and these Bf-109s were one of the most advanced fighters in the world. So, because of this, the RAF pilots certainly had to face some adversity. This adversity, however, would not hold James Edwards back at all. After being brought to the 94th Squadron, Eddie took off for his first operational combat flight on March 23rd of 1942. On this mission, he would actually claim his first kill against a German aircraft when he took down a Bf-109. And as difficult as this kill may have been, Edwards would soon prove that he was capable of far more. Just a couple of months later, in mid-June of that year, Edwards would take off for another mission. Still a fairly unknown pilot and not even an ace yet, he would run into his most skilled adversary thus far. This opponent would be Otto Schultz. Schultz was a Luftwaffe ace who had seen a great deal of success thus far. He had claimed 50 total kills and was continuing his tear. At this time, he was the third highest scoring ace in the North African theater of war and one of the top overall scorers in the Luftwaffe. But on this day, he would meet his match. Schultz would actually first take down Canadian RAF ace Walter Wally Conrad for his 51st victory. Then, shortly after, in a move that was questionable both from a strategic and moral perspective, he descended below to strafe Conrad's crashed P-40. Immediately, flying above, Edwards saw the opportunity and dove in. He opened up on the 109 and sent him down, spiraling into the ground below, killing the famed German ace. This would not be the last of his run-ins with famous Luftwaffe pilots, however. Just a few months later, in September of 1942, he had raised his kill count to 6, now an ace. On the 3rd of the month, he would run into debatably the most skilled fighter pilot in the world at this time. This would be none other than the Star of Africa, Hans-Joachim Marseille. Marseille was an elite fighter pilot and playboy, playing by his own rules. At this time, in 1942, Marseille had more than 125 kills claimed and was widely known as the best deflection shooter in the Luftwaffe. He was one of the top overall scoring pilots of the war and was quickly catching up on the leaders. On this day, Marseille was in action near El Alamein. He was continuing his normal success, tearing into RAF fighters. On the day, he had already claimed 3 P-40s and 2 Spitfires destroyed for 5 kills. At 3:42 p.m., however, he went in on yet another P-40. With his normal devastating accuracy, he took down the Kitty Hawk for his 6th kill of the day, and 132nd victory overall. But then, similar to the engagement with Schultz in June, James Edwards was watching this unfold. Then, swooping in, the RAF ace opened up a burst, drilling the 109 of Marseille. His aircraft would be heavily damaged, but the pilot himself was okay. Had any of these rounds hit the cockpit, the famous ace could have been easily killed. But now, having already shot down multiple aircraft in this sortie, the Star of Africa was likely low on ammo and knew that a dogfight was probably not in his best interest. Thus, it is likely that he pulled away from the engagement and turned for home. James Edwards, the young ace from Saskatchewan with just 6 kills, had just barely missed taking down the highest scoring ace of the entire North African theater. But he would have to live with simply damaging the 109 and heading back for home. As impressive as this encounter was, just 3 days later, the Canadian flyer would have one more run-in with yet another famous Luftwaffe ace. This would occur on September 6th of 1942, when Edwards was flying on a patrol near El Alamein once again. In this sortie, he would tangle with another Messerschmitt Bf 109, and a 109 that may have very well been piloted by renowned German ace Gunther Steinhausen. Steinhausen was a seasoned flyer who, at this time, had 40 total kills and was actually the pilot responsible for shooting down famous B-24 Liberator Eager Beaver just a few weeks earlier. This, however, would be the German airman's last flight. For Eddie and his Kitty Hawk, this would be a difficult dogfight, but he would survive. However, after the engagement, he would claim just one German fighter damaged after this sortie. According to historians, though, Edwards was actually noteworthy for underclaiming his kills. He only recorded a victory if he was absolutely sure that the plane was destroyed. This is quite a contrast to many other pilots of the war, both German and American, who notoriously overclaimed in various battles. Edwards, however, had a very accurate kill count and, according to some, may have even scored significantly more victories than he originally claimed. This instance might very well be one of them. After the war, historians would conclude that there was a good chance that Steinhausen was the German pilot that Edwards hit, mistakenly thinking that he just damaged the aircraft, when in reality it did go down. There is debate about credit for this kill, however, based on the time that the claim occurred in relation to Steinhausen's death, but it is certainly a possibility that Edwards was the one responsible. After this, James Edwards would continue his success in the air and would be moved to the Supermarine Spitfire the following year, where he would take down numerous 109s and Focke-Wulf 190s. According to some sources, Edwards' final wartime score was 15 total victories, with 3 shared and 9 destroyed on the ground, while others have his tally as high as 19 kills for the war. Following the war, the famous Canadian pilot would stay in the Air Force for many years training young pilots. He would even get a chance to eventually fly a vintage P-40 in 2009, painted in the livery of his actual fighter from North Africa. The famous ace just recently passed away this month at the age of 100. Thanks for watching, please click subscribe, and I'll see you next time.